Hey, this is Anthony Cesari with SuccessForYourSongs.com. While there are so many different approaches you can take to writing a song, in this video I want to show you my favorite one, and I think it's a really great approach for beginners. Although if you have written songs before, I think you'll appreciate this as well. So let's dive right in and see what I'm talking about. Okay, so we're going to talk about what I think is the best way to write a song, the best approach. There are a lot of ways that you can approach writing a song. You can start by, creating a beat in your DAW. You can start on your guitar or your piano. You can write a riff there. You can start with a melodic line. There's just so many different ways. Maybe you have a poem that you want to turn into a song. But I think this is one of the stronger ways to actually start a song because it's basically top down. And that is, as you can see from this chart here, you're starting from whatever your main idea is. Now, obviously, if you want to write a song, you probably have some kind of big idea for what you want this song to be about. So with this graph where I'm outlining what we're going to be looking at, we're starting with the idea. And the idea can be something simple. It's whatever you want to write that song about. And if you don't have an idea, you can come up with one from a bunch of different ways. You can kind of take cues from the world around you. If you hear different conversations on TV or when you're out and about, just hearing people say things, you might hear a phrase that can spark an idea. It could be a road sign even. You could start from a cliche, but I would just say if you do that, you might want to put your own kind of twist on it. Cliches have been so overused that they're, even if there is a cool meaning behind it, it's lost in that overuse. But if you can find a way to put a new spin on it, then that can be cool. There's as an example, there's a Demi Lovato song. I think it's called "Give Your Heart a Break." So obviously the idea of heartbreak is super common, not only in songwriting, but just everywhere. Just the idea of heartbreak in general. It's not even visual anymore because it's so common. But in that song, she talks about giving your heart a break as in giving it a rest. So it's not talking about a heartbreak in a traditional sense. It's talking about, actually break meaning rest. So it's a different spin on an old idea. So if you can do something like that, that can be cool as far as a cliche goes. But otherwise, any idea that you may have for a song could work as long as you can distill that idea down into a title. That's what you're looking to do here. So we're basically starting with a title. You're starting with an idea that can become a title. A lot of times those are going to be the same thing. Your idea, if it's short enough, can just be your title. And if it isn't, just you have to figure out how to just get that to be short enough to be a title. So the cool thing is once you have that title and that idea, that's going to inform so much of the rest of your song. That's what I'm showing in this chart here. And I'm going to walk you along through this, showing you how I did this with one of my songs. I had a title that was a simple idea like we talked about. It's called "Can You Feel the Change?" Just the idea it's trying to get across is there's a change that happens. Can you feel it? Doesn't get simpler than that, right? So that is not only the overall idea for the song, but also it became the title. And if you'd like to take a listen to that song, I've got a link for it right on the screen here and also below the video so that you can check it out in full before we discuss it more in detail and how that's going to apply to this concept. Now, once you have that title, it's going to inform a lot of stuff in your chorus. That's this chorus stuff section here. So it's going to inform your lyrical concept for the chorus, which a lot of times is going to be the same thing as the title itself. It's going to inform your key and your tempo, and it's going to inform your melodic rhythm. So just by having that title, you're going to be, you've already got a lot of information about your song, and you don't even know it. That's what a big advantage of starting this way, as opposed to starting with like a guitar riff or creating a beat in your DAW, is you're starting with the overall idea and going down from there, figuring out all the details from there. If you just start with a guitar riff, who knows where you're going to want to take that? Not to say that, that's never been done and you can't do that. There's plenty of really cool rock songs that start from guitar riffs, but it's usually a solid approach to do it this way. Okay, so you're going to have a lyrical concept for your chorus. Now, there are a handful of really popular song structures. If you're not aware of them, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus is a really popular one. Also, like the song I'm showing you here, verse, chorus, It's a little less common because usually there's room for that third section, like a bridge. But I think for simplicity's sake, it's worth talking about this song here because you can. We've only got these two sections, and that can become a full song. And if you want to add a pre-chorus before your chorus, you can do that. And also, if you want to have a bridge, that's also a super common thing as well. So as long as you're starting with one of those structures in mind, then you just have to know that each of those sections is going to have an idea for it lyrically. And the idea for your chorus is simply going to be the title. So the overall concept for my chorus in this song is "Can you feel the change?" I've actually extended that out lyrically to "Can you feel the change in your veins?" But that's the idea for the chorus. I'm just going to write that at the top. And once I have that for one chorus, the choruses lyrically are almost always the same. So that's once that idea happens for one of my choruses, then I know that's going to be the same idea lyrically for my other chorus as well. Or if you have a song with three choruses, it's going to be the same for all of those choruses. So now I already have an overall idea for my chorus before these lyrics were even written. And that's going to help me get into the details of writing those lyrics. So that's how the title goes hand in hand with the lyrical concept for your chorus. It's basically the same thing. The title is the overall idea for your chorus. And then once you have that, we'll talk about how you can create the overall concept for your verses, which will help you write your verse lyrics. But first, let's talk about this other chorus stuff that comes straight from your title. So your title is also going to inform the key that your song is in and its tempo. Before we move on, I just want to mention that we have a couple of free songwriting cheat sheets for you that can download in the upper right-hand side of the screen. You can just tap that little eye and grab those. Also, if you have not yet subscribed to this YouTube channel to stay updated on our latest songwriting videos, we've got a subscribe button on the lower right-hand side of the video. You can do that there. So generally speaking, you can be in a major key or a minor key. And if you're in a major key, that's going to apply more to songs that tend to be more upbeat or happy. That's kind of the cliche about major keys. And then if it's in a minor key, it's going to probably be a more melancholy song. So if you have a title and an idea, you can put it in a major or a minor key based on what the idea is. And you know that right off the bat. So with this one, Can You Feel the Change? I knew that this change that I was going to be talking about was going to be something that's probably negative. So I ended up putting this song in D minor. Now, the most important thing to just know is if it's going to be major or minor. As far as finding the actual key it's going to be in, that's going to depend on a few things. It's going to depend on how easy it is for you to play on the guitar or the piano. It's going to also depend on how your vocal range sits above the chords when you come up with a melody in that key. And if you're not familiar with what all the keys are, you can just do a Google search to look up the chords in the different major or minor keys. And then you can just simply choose some of those chords as the chords for your song. So as an example of that, here's a chart that I put together showing all the minor keys. So for the example song that we're looking at, I chose the key of D minor, so I knew that I had all of these chords in D minor available to me. And I did some experimenting with which minor key it should be out of the ones on this chart. But D minor just seemed to fit my vocal range well, and especially since this was a guitar song, the chords on the guitar played well for me as well. So that's why I ended up choosing D minor for this. So based on the chords available to me in the key of D minor, the chords I ended up choosing for my chorus after some experimentation were G minor, C, D minor, C. And you can see that those are all in my key of D minor. That's my D minor, my G minor, and my C. So those chords, again, were informed by my title, just by the fact that I knew I wanted this to be in a minor key. And the tempo sort of goes hand in hand with that. Generally, you want the tempo of your song to convey the mood that you're discussing in your lyrics. So again, since this song was Can You Feel the Change, and it's talking about a change that isn't good, I wanted the tempo to be on kind of a slower side, which I ended up being at 85 beats per minute here, because that helped me convey the meaning of this song. And that's something that once you have those chords figured out, you can just simply, play them at different speeds to see what works in regard to your overall idea and your title. Even if you don't have a melody for that title yet, just playing them at different speeds to see how the mood is and how that mood reflects what your title is. So if you had a song about partying or something, you're going to end up bumping up that BPM to a really much higher rate than I had here, most likely. Okay, so the last thing that your title is going to actually inform in your chorus directly is the melody of your rhythm. Now your melody, keep in mind, it's really only two components. It's rhythm and pitch. So pitch being the notes that you're playing, the up and down component, and then rhythm being the sort of side to side component. You can think of it that way if you're thinking of it as a as if these components were, on a graph. So the title itself is actually going to inform the rhythm. It won't inform the pitch because you'll have to come up with those notes based on the chords that you come up with. And you could do this part first if you want to come up with the melody before you come up with your chords. That's always an option. But the actual rhythm of your melody is built into your title. So I've done a lot of other videos on this concept, but it's worth mentioning again here. The spoken word has its own rhythm to it. Generally speaking, a single syllable verb or noun is going to be stressed, and in a smaller single syllable word, like an article or a preposition, won't be stressed. And then for multiple syllable words, you can just look that up in a dictionary or on dictionary.com or something like that, and they'll actually show you which part of the word gets stressed and which doesn't. Now that's important because when we look at our title, so if we're looking at this, now we want to know which parts of this title are stressed, because that's going to inform our melody. So in a phrase like, can you feel the change? Feel being the verb, a single syllable verb, would get a stress, and change being a single syllable noun would also be stressed. There's an argument to be made for can and you. I think in this particular phrase, it really depends on how you want this phrase to come off. When I was saying, can you feel the change? I was thinking of it in the more general sense, in which case can and you probably wouldn't be stressed. But if you did want to stress can, it's kind of like saying, can you feel the change? Like, are you able to feel it? It's really emphasizing that part of it. And if you were to emphasize the you, then it's saying, can you feel the change? Like you as opposed to someone else. So those are sort of optional ones that happen in this phrase. But for me, for this song, I ended up just saying that feel and change are the parts of the title that get stressed. So now the reason that's important is because your music also has stress. Generally, if your song's in 4/4 time, the strongest stresses of your measure are going to be your first and third beats in that measure. So if you want your lyrics to be heard correctly, you want to align the stresses in your lyric with the stresses in the music. So I ideally want the feel and the change to be on the first and third beats, or maybe both on first beats or both on third beats. But I sort of want to have that in my mind somewhere so that I know that those two words, those words that want to be stressed, are hitting the musical stresses. So now you can see how that title is starting to directly inform your actual melody, because it's creating the rhythm for you. Again, the pitch is something that you're going to add on your own based on your chords and your key and all that. But the title itself is already giving you part of the melody. Now, after toying around with this a little bit, I ended up coming up with, I put the feel on the first beat and change on the third beat. So this is what that ended up sounding like. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you see how those words line up with my melody. And again, the actual notes that I chose are based on the key that I'm in. But even if you're just kind of clapping it out and you don't have a pitch for your melody yet, you're really starting to get there in a way that's totally coming from your title itself. So if we look back at our chart, we could see how our title just totally informed the lyrical concept for this section, which is easy because it's basically the same thing as the title. Lyrical concept for our chorus is, can you feel the change? The key and the tempo it also informed, because we knew we wanted to be in a minor key. Then we just had to go digging a little bit to see which minor key is best for our vocals and how we're playing the song, if it's on a guitar or piano. If it's written on a DAW, then that's not really going to apply to you, because pretty much any key is just going to be as easy as the next. So that's really more of an instrument thing chord-wise. But you also want it to be in a key that's comfortable for you to sing. So keep that in mind as well. And then we also see how the melodic rhythm is being informed here. And you do have to find the pitches that you want. But all this stuff already, granted, it's not the whole song, but it's a pretty big chunk. It's not the whole chorus, I should say, but it's a pretty good chunk. And from having that, you should be able to experiment and fill in the pieces from there. Now, the cool thing is, once we have all this stuff just from our title, that stuff can start to inform verse stuff. I wrote verse stuff here, but really it applies also to if you have a bridge and even a pre-chorus, it's basically other sections. But for the purposes of this example, we're just going to talk about verses. But the reason that stuff starts to apply to your verses is the best way to have your chorus stand out from your verses and your other sections in your song is to create contrast. So when you already created these aspects of your song in your chorus, by doing things that are different from those, now you can start to build your verse. So let's take a look at what I mean by that. So we have this stuff that's informed by our choruses already. Now we want to think about building out our verse. And also I should say that another reason I like this kind of top-down approach is by building your choruses first. That's really the most important part of the song. So by putting the effort on that and focusing on that first with the title, everything that comes after that is, kind of just gravy, because you want the chorus to be the part that stands out, and you're putting that initial effort into doing that. But okay, so now we can start to look at verse stuff. And so one thing that we know is our lyrical concept for our choruses. Can you feel the change? So now we have to think about how are our verses going to get us to that chorus lyrically. So in the case of this song, in the first verse, I wanted to talk about the actual feeling of the change. So that feeling of the change is going to lead into, can you feel the change? So if we're describing the feeling, and then when we get to the chorus, can you feel that? So you could see in lines like, did you feel it slip away? Everything you've known has changed, and you're drowning in the fear of this new day. When you catch your breath, you're smacked with another wave. So it's sort of getting across the idea of actually feeling the change that's happening. And again, you're noticing through the lyrics that it's not a positive change that's happening. So that sets up the chorus. When you get there, then can you feel the change? And you should be able to, because that was the point of that verse, getting you to feel that. So you can think about your verse as something that wants to set up the chorus. And in your second verse, unlike the chorus, the second verse is going to be different as an overall idea from your first verse. So for me in this song, I wanted the second verse to be about the effect of the change. So how is that feeling of the change affecting this person? So you can see that in, now you're tough, a callous soul, you're a statue because you've seen it all, positioned like you're wondering how much was your fault. Now you're hard on the outside, but you'll crack if you fall. So this is the result of the change. And the importance of coming up with a lyrical concept for each of these sections is once you have that concept, now you can write the specifics of the lyrics because you know what that section's going to be about. So you started off with knowing your overall idea, which is, in this case, can you feel the change? That overall idea is also the overall idea for your chorus, because that's what your chorus does. And the easy part is that's every chorus. Now you can look at your verses and decide, how do you want those verses? How do you want the overall idea for those verses to set up your chorus? And then once you have that, then it becomes a lot easier to write your specific verses. Okay, so what you did previously in your with your chords also informs your verse chords. I should say your chorus chords are also going to inform your verse chords. I actually shouldn't have tempo here, because the tempo's almost always going to be the same throughout your whole song. It's rare that you're going to change tempo from verse to chorus. So your tempo is actually going to stay the same. I guess technically that is informed from the chorus because it's going to be the exact same thing. So that part's easy. And your key is probably going to be the same too. There are some exceptions to that. But it is going to change the chords that you have in your verse because, again, you want to create contrast here. So you know that once you've chosen a chord progression in your chorus, the chord progression that you choose in your verse is most likely going to be different. There are exceptions to that. I did a video about one of the Weeknd songs where he used the entire song on the same 4 chords and how he made that work. So if you are interested in using the same chord, you can check that out. But it tends to be a bit more advanced because you really have to make sure you're making a lot of changes in other parts of the song if you want to use the same chords. So one of the things we can probably assume here is that we're going to use different chords, but still chords that are in our same key. And we might even have some chords that are the same as in our previous section, but they'll just be in a different location. So instead of maybe being the first chord in the progression, they'll be the third chord. So the chord progression overall is going to be different from one section to the other, but they'll still be in the same key. And in this song, I kind of cheated on that, sort of. So the chords that I used here were actually just D minor and C repeated over and over again. So they do appear in the chorus as well, in the same order, but it's just that first chord on the chorus was a G minor, whereas in the verse, I'm just going back and forth from D minor to C. It was kind of fitting to me because I basically use the same chords. I'm sort of contradicting myself by telling you to use different chords, and I'm kind of using the same. But I just made a small change in putting that first chord as a different one here, with the idea being that G minor chord falls right on the line, can you feel the change? So when that one chord hits differently, you feel the change of that chord as it comes into a new section, and that section feels different from the ones before it. Obviously, there's other things that are happening in the chorus that make it feel different, but just that one chord changing makes it feel different. So in order to create contrast, that's what happens. I get this chord change. You're probably going to make bigger chord changes from one section to the other than I did here. Not to say that you can't use the same chords from one section to the next. Like if you have a C chord in your verse, you can also have a C chord like in a different place in your choruses, but generally the overall progression is going to be different. So once you know what your chords are going to be in your chorus, now you know that you can use different chords in your verse. Even just using them in a different order from one section, from like a verse to a chorus, can make them effective. It'll help you create that contrast. So that's how our chorus is going to inform our verse. And then the last way what we did in the chorus informs what we're going to do in the verse is through our melodic rhythm. Oh, I should also mention that it's generally a good idea to have the title on the first or the last line of your section. Those tend to be highlighted areas, so it can make that title stand out more if you do that. So that's worth mentioning as well. So as far as melodic rhythm goes, once you've established what your rhythm was going to be in your choruses, again, to create contrast in your verses, you could do something different there. So for example, the melody of the choruses in this song tend to be more drawn out compared to the verses. So listen to the melody to see how you can hear a difference from one section to the other.
Can you feel the change in your veins?
So that was the chorus. This is the verse.
Everything you've known has changed, and you're drowning.
And then back to the chorus.
Can you feel the change in your veins?
So you can feel how the rhythm of that melody is different. Again, there's other things that are happening melodically that are going on. Obviously, the pitches there are different. The chords are changing. The instrumentation is changing, all that. But if you just listen to the rhythm of the melody, you'll see that that's different from one section to the other. And once I got that first melody, the rhythm of the melody, I should say, which was based on my title, then I know that the rhythm of the melody in my verses is going to be different in order to start creating that contrast. And again, there are other things that you're going to be filling in the gaps with here, like the pitch of the melody, the arrangement. But once you do this, you're going to have a lot of that stuff done. You're going to have like a real framework for the song, and it's all going to be based on the overall idea. So it's really going to be informing everything that happens in your song. And I should mention too, with melody, generally you want to write with melodic motifs. So a melodic line tends to repeat itself throughout a section. Sometimes it'll repeat and change a little bit. So once you write the melodic rhythm based on what the title actually is, that's probably going to repeat from line to line or be pretty close from line to line. And then when it gets different in your verse, that different one is going to repeat pretty closely in your verses. But I mean, you're basing everything that you do here on your overall concept, and that's trickling down into other decisions that you made. So you're hitting some major beats of the song with what I'm talking about here. And then filling in the rest shouldn't be too tough for you. If it is, I'll have other videos on how to do that, how to get into the more specific details of writing lyrics and melodies and chord progressions and even choosing song structures and stuff like that. But I think if you start with everything that you looked at here, you'll have a ton done and it'll all be related to your overall idea, which is good. So you want to start with that. So I hope that makes sense and pushes you in the right direction. So I hope you found that information useful. If you'd like a lot more ways to improve your songwriting, I've got a couple of free cheat sheets for you that you can download by tapping on the screen here. Also, if you have not yet subscribed to this YouTube channel to stay updated on our latest songwriting videos, you can tap our logo on the screen for that. And there's also a link on this screen where you can hear the song that I played for you in this video and the song that you're hearing right now. So thank you for checking this one out. I'll talk to you in the next one.